And thank you so much for joining us for CBN News Watch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, an historic time in Israel as the Jewish state marks its 75th anniversary. We're going to look at how Israel has survived and flourished against all odds over the decades, the deadly dangers in the war-torn country of Sudan, and the options the U.S. is considering to get Americans out. A Studio 5 conversation with David Zock of the Christian band Remedy Drive about his mission to fight human trafficking and bring an end to modern-day slavery. And it was a big hit in theaters, and now the movie Jesus Revolution is also #1 on a major streaming service. All those stories and more are ahead today in CBN News Watch. We begin this half hour in Israel at an historic time, celebrating the 75th anniversary of its independence today, after honoring its fallen soldiers on the country's Memorial Day Tuesday. The Independence Day celebration went smoothly despite fears of disturbances. That celebration stems from a declaration signed in a Tel Aviv art gallery that changed the world forever. Against overwhelming odds, the fledgling state of Israel not only survived but is flourished. CBN's Chris Mitchell takes us back to the moment of Israel's founding and shows us how it put a tiny nation on the path to become a world power.
Here in Independence Hall on May 14, 1948, David Ben-Gurion declared the birth of the modern state of Israel. For the first time in nearly 2,000 years, the Jewish people had a nation.
He chose the words, "We hereby declare the establishment," it says here, "of a Jewish state in the land of Israel to be known as the state of Israel." This was the birth of a Jewish state. As for all Jews, Ben-Gurion was standing here as the voice of 11 million Jews around the world who had no voice, who had no address, and nowhere to go to.
Isaac Dror's mission here is to ensure the story of Israel's beginning remains alive and continues to spread.
It was promised to us by God. We are the only people in the history of the world that live on the same land, speak in the same language, and believe in the same God more than 3,000 years.
From a biblical perspective, many see Israel fulfilling the prophecy in the book of Ezekiel, where the dry bones of the Jewish people come to life after 2,000 years of exile. Organizations like the Jewish Agency help lay the groundwork for that 2,000 years in the making Jewish state.
The Jewish Agency was the lead organization in establishing and giving birth to the modern state of Israel. The whole purpose of establishing the Jewish Agency was to, on the one hand, unite the global Jewish people and to bring the global Jewish people in front of the British mandate to be the organization that would lead and establish a national home for the Jewish people in the land of Israel.
To fully comprehend the miracle of the country's birth, consider that it happened in the shadow of the Holocaust, or Shoah in Hebrew, when the world learned how Nazi Germany murdered 6 million Jews.
When you understand that only 3 years after the end of the Shoah, the lowest point the Jewish people reached in its exile, we started our redemption process and we regained our independence after 2,000 years of terrible events. Well, if that's not a miracle, I don't know what a miracle is.
Even so, Dayan dispels one myth about the connection between Israel's beginning and the Holocaust.
Israel was not established because of the Holocaust. Israel was established in spite of the Holocaust. Israel would have been a much robust, greater, secure, successful country if there were additional 6 million Jews and their descendants in the world. But Israel is the guarantee that there will be no other Shoah for the Jewish people.
Now, after 75 years, Israel maintains its safety and security with one of the most powerful militaries in the world.
Then it was small units of very patriotic people, some of them Holocaust survivors who just came off the boat from Europe, put on IDF uniforms and joined battle and defended Israel in 1948 against 6 Arab armies. Today, we are a highly organized, developed, and well-funded military, perhaps the strongest in the region, that enjoys a significant technological advantage over all of our enemies.
Israel is also an economic miracle. This tiny country with less than 10 million people has the highest concentration of new businesses per capita in the world, earning it the nickname of Startup Nation. John Medved, founder of Our Crowd, a venture capital investment company, showcases these accomplishments at his annual Investor Summit.
This is what Israel is supposed to be doing, right? If Israel wasn't the startup nation, so what are we going to be? Okay, I'm sorry, this is our destiny. Our destiny is to create. Our destiny is to, fix the world. And we're just a little people. We make a lot of noise. But I think that most Israelis, whether they wear a yarmulke or they don't wear a yarmulke, view this as a spiritual undertaking, that we're doing this not just to make money, but to do good.
Yet throughout its history, Israel has faced nearly insurmountable odds. Just hours after Ben Gurion declared the state, 6 Arab nations tried to drive it into the sea. While it survived, Israel would be challenged again in the 1967 Six-Day War and the 1973 Yom Kippur War. After thousands of years in exile and 75 years as a country, Israel stands despite enemies within, along each border, and beyond.
It's a modern miracle. The rebirth of the Jewish state against all odds, a people that were left for dead, that had been dispersed to the four corners of the earth, and you saw the ancient prophecies fulfilled, where you had the ingathering of the Jewish exiles, the restoration of Jewish sovereignty in modern times, against all odds.
Former Israeli ambassador to the U.S. and now Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer tells CBN News this miracle can be seen unfolding throughout the nation.
And you're seeing that happen wherever you go in Israel, whether it's in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, and you saw all the ancient history, and then you see the startup nation. You go north, south, east, and west. Israel is a modern miracle. It is the greatest miracle of the 20th century and maybe the greatest miracle of the last 2,000 years.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Coming up, the dangerous fighting in the African nation of Sudan and the options the United States is considering to get Americans out of that war-torn country. We're going to have the story for you and more when we come back. You're watching CBN News Watch. A shaky 3-day ceasefire is in place in the war-torn country of Sudan. U.S. Special Forces have rescued Americans at the embassy. Other countries are evacuating citizens as well. And there's concern outside influences could reignite the fighting. CBN National Security Correspondent Caitlin Burke is on this story.
The Pentagon is evaluating multiple options to facilitate evacuations of Americans. 16,000, many of them dual citizens, remain in the country, and getting them out may require troops on the ground.
U.S. Africa Command and the Department of Defense continue to work closely with State Department, which has the lead for helping American citizens wishing to depart Sudan.
As 2 U.S. Navy ships remain on standby off the coast, the Pentagon is also providing support for those traveling by land to reach the evacuation points.
We have placed ISR assets, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance assets over the land evacuation route to help facilitate safe travel by land from Khartoum to the port of Sudan. And we have started to see a more regular pattern of convoys begin to arrive.
The White House stresses there are not currently American boots on the ground in Sudan, although before the ceasefire declaration, U.S. Special Forces, including SEAL Team 6, landed briefly in the country to save Americans at the U.S. Embassy. That operation, a success.
U.S. forces carried out this mission with precision and professionalism.
Meanwhile, other countries are also conducting large-scale evacuations and cooperating with each other to get citizens out.
These situations are very difficult for foreign governments to handle because the situation on the ground is a conflict situation. It's chaotic. There's a lot of risk and danger.
The World Health Organization now warning of an extremely dangerous situation. Fighters have occupied a national laboratory that contains samples of diseases like polio and the measles. Outside groups are reportedly destabilizing the region further by providing support to the 2 generals battling each other for control of Sudan, something the U.S. says must stop.
We do have deep concern about the engagement of the Prigozhin group, the Wagner group, in Sudan. It's in so many different countries in Africa an element that, when it's engaged, simply brings more death and destruction with it.
More than 400 people have been killed since the fighting broke out and nearly 4,000 injured. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
The crisis on the U.S. southern border has been a key issue in Congress, including hearings last week. House Republicans accusing Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas of intentionally making the situation worse. Mayorkas recently traveled to South America to pledge American cooperation in shutting down a key route used by migrants as they head to the United States. But as Chuck Holton reports from Northern Colombia, he's made that promise before.
The combination of wars and conflict, climate change, and the fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic has led to an unprecedented flow of vulnerable people throughout the world, including in our hemisphere and specifically through the Darien.
A year ago, U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas pledged to stop migrants from attempting the treacherous forest trek through the Darien Gap. But 250,000 people have made the crossing since then.
The Biden administration has announced, in conjunction with the Panamanian and Colombian governments, that they're going to shut off this passage for the next 60 days. But they haven't said how they're going to do that. And the people that we've talked to here have had one of two reactions. Either good luck with that, because it's so big, there's no way they're going to be able to close it, or they're saying, we have nowhere to go back to.
There were many who had to sell everything in order to leave, and if we go back, we'll be living on the street.
Locals we spoke to are all surprised by the sudden increase in Chinese migrants.
Tell me why so many Chinese coming now?
They want to go to America. They search freedom, democracy.
Economy in China, good or bad?
Look like good, but I think it's not a truth.
Stephanie is 16 years old. She's from Margarita in Venezuela. And this is her baby. ¿Cuántos meses tiene?
7 meses.
Who has 7 months so far. And she's about to embark on a journey through the Darien Gap. And she's afraid. She knows that it's going to be difficult. But she says life is going to be difficult no matter what. So she hopes that this will give her little baby, Luyenis, a chance at a better future.
In order to get that chance, they first have to survive the crossing. In early April, Panamanian Border Police, accompanied by American journalists Ben Berquam and Oscar Ramirez, encountered a cartel gang robbing and raping migrants at gunpoint in the jungle. While authorities killed one of the robbers and captured 6 more, the danger remains. In Necoclí, the price charged by the cartels to allow the migrants to pass has increased, and a protection racket has sprung up.
Here you have to pay for the passage, plus a sticker. This is insurance, so nothing happens to you in the jungle.
Cartels make an estimated $300,000 per day from this protection racket, and it's unlikely they'll allow this lucrative path to shut down without a fight. And each day, more desperate migrants arrive here in Necoclí, increasing the pressure on both countries to do something to fix the problem. From Northern Colombia, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Still ahead, our Studio 5 conversation with David Zock, the front man from the band Remedy Drive, about his mission today, fighting human trafficking and working to bring an end to modern-day slavery. We're going to hear from him right after this. He's the front man for the band Remedy Drive. David Zock has seen his music earn at least a dozen top 20 singles and a critically acclaimed recording since his band got started in 1998. But the front page for the front man these days is a mission to fight human trafficking and to bring an end to modern-day slavery.
I've been given this front row seat to the modern-day abolition movement, and it's been the privilege of my life to watch ordinary people step into extraordinary roles in the arena of freedom and justice and mercy.
How does your life put you then on the front lines of the fight against human trafficking?
Like 08, 09, and even earlier than that, I started writing some lyric having to do with boy soldiers But it came to a head in 2012 when my daughter and I watched a documentary about slavery, about child soldiers and exploitation. And she says, Dad, why not God protect those boys? And for me, that was when I said, I can't go on writing music and living my life in such a way that doesn't take this particular tragedy seriously. So it started with me just writing songs, hoping that my songs would contribute to a difference. Matt Parker, who founded the Exodus Road with his wife Laura, was a fan of our band.
We merged our rock and roll band with a counter-trafficking organization called the Exodus Road. We use our concerts and our albums to shine a light on slavery.
And so Matt knew who I was, sang my songs in the car while he was driving. And he came to town looking for an artist to talk about the work of the Exodus Road, the counter-trafficking work of the Exodus Road. So in the middle of me writing this, watching all these documentaries about work like the work that he's doing, he's coming to Nashville looking for a band and set up a bunch of meetings. I was the only one that didn't cancel. And then he started talking about the work, spying on traffickers, using hidden cameras and cyber forensic software to find evidence of what they're doing. And I kind of sheepishly asked, hey, what do you think if I came along and just to see? So that's how it started for me. I got to kind of shadow him on a trip, meet some of the team, and start doing undercover work, you know, just surface level stuff on that first trip. And it just turned into what it is now.
What do you remember most about that first trip?
I'd never been face to face with poverty like I was that first time in Southeast Asia. And the desperation that surrounds poverty, like I'd never seen it. And because I'd done all this research about sex trafficking, about slavery, leading up to that, I felt like I was going to be able to handle it, but it shook me to the core.
Wow.
Like to see hundreds and hundreds of women being sold and teenage girls in clubs, but then on the side of the road, and it doesn't look like what you think it would look like. Just that desperation, it impacted me deeply, and the sense of helplessness, like this is too big of a scale, this one city alone. Can I really do anything? I left feeling too small, too inadequate.
How do you keep from getting overwhelmed in light of the difficulty of what it is you do?
I think I do get overwhelmed. And I'm trying to find that line, you know? Like, I don't think there's true fulfillment or true joy in this life without intentionally aligning ourselves with somebody else's sorrow. Like, that's what it means to be like Jesus Christ from Nazareth.
Yeah.
But it's so overwhelming. I've never wanted what's wrong to be made right so desperately. I hear people say we're the body of Christ, so let's act like it. Let's be the hands and feet, you know?
What do you think we in our comfortable world, what do we not know?
I don't think we know, one, what kind of desperate situation would put someone in a situation where they have to hope that the agency that's taking their kid from the hill country down to the major city, that's a legitimate agency that's going to employ them at a hotel or a restaurant. You know, it's a desperate move. The kids are 15. My girl's 15 now, so when I started this work, she was 5. Why can a whole culture look the other way when this is obviously happening in broad daylight? But I also think, and this is hopeful, I think we don't know what kind of change we can make as one person, as one interview with you, one platform with CBN, one rock and roll band. The ripples that you and I can create turn to tidal waves, and I believe that with all my heart. And so we're celebrating coming up on 1,000 traffickers that we participated in arresting, and coming up on 2,000 people whose freedom we've participated in impacting. And there's a temptation to be like, it's not that much. But I want to be like the kid on the hillside that everybody said, man, no, Jesus doesn't need your lunch. It's like, but I got 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And that's what I have. And that's what anybody watching has. They have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And put that out there and see what happens. And in that situation, Jesus lifted it up above his head and blessed it. And 10,000 people were fed, you know?
And for more from Maroney Drive and David Zock, be sure to check out their music on all streaming and digital platforms. For more uplifting entertainment, join us for Studio 5 this evening. George Foreman, Judy Bloom, and Chevalier are all on deck for this evening's show. You can catch an all-new edition of Studio 5 on the CBN News Channel. It begins at 8:30 Eastern. You can also find it on the CBN News App and YouTube. Coming up, the movie Jesus Revolution was a hit at the box office, and now it's a success on a major online platform as well. We're going to bring you the story when we come back. Stay with us.
Download the CBN News App, 24/7 news from a Christian perspective at home or on the road. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Set daily prayer goals and pray for news stories. Read the most important news and watch CBN News Channel live. CBN News, because truth matters. Go to cbnnewsapp.com to get the app today.
Welcome back to CBN News Watch. The faith-based film Jesus Revolution has pulled in more than $52 million at the box office, and it's now the top-selling movie on Amazon Prime. The movie tells the true story behind the Jesus movement of the 1970s, including how Pastor Chuck Smith welcomed hippies at Calvary Chapel as they were looking for truth. That invitation helped to fuel one of the greatest spiritual awakenings in American history. You can find out more about the impact of the film, including outbreaks of prayer and revival inside and outside of theaters where it was shown. You can find that all at cbnnews.com. Time now for your Wednesday word, and today's word is rest. But in this rest, here's what I'm encouraging you to do. Take a break. Decrease the busyness of life, but increase the intimate time with God. His presence brings rest and a peace you simply can't explain. Take the trip, take the break, take the holiday, but never take a break from your time in His presence. He is the answer to the rest that we all so desperately need. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. I want to remind you, you can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We would love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can email us. The address is right there at the bottom of your screen, newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. Make this a wonderful Wednesday and join us right back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye. God bless.